having grown up here and having grown up where you grew up,
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are more than a couple of people of interest that people listening may have heard of in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Would you care to take us down that road and
Yeah,
tell
if
us
you're
a
interested.
few famous folks?
Yeah, sure. So I know what you're getting at. So
There's really actually at least 3 avenues that I'm
Yeah.
thinking of.
Well,
Maybe more I don't know.
one of the, I think, for the purposes of this, I could go over is, so my stepdad was this famous FIFA guy. Well, let's just not say his name because it's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
And he was a very eccentric person who also got arrested by the FBI and totally corrupt, crazy person. Anyway, my mom, when she was dating him, we lived with him. We left the Upper West Side, and we lived with him from when I was about 12 to about 22, 23, something like that.
Okay.
And where we lived in Trump Tower, which is the official, it is the Trump Tower. So it's where Trump lived, it's where Michael Jackson lived, it's where, all these people lived. And
this is referring to the one on
56 and 5th.
Right.
And so if you look at it now, there's barricades that they built, with a mobile military.
The Imperial March is being played by some unseen band constantly.
Right.
And it's but when I was growing up, my experience with it was, so these are my formative years. I'm coming back home at 3 a.m, drunk.
Right.
And you walk into this. So, first of all, you're not walking into a house. You're not walking into your apartment. You're not able to kind of sneak into your bedroom. You're walking into a brightly lit, fully staffed lobby.
Right.
With eight doormen that know your parents and know your mom and know your whatever.
Right.
But there's also a culture in the building that everybody's kids are like this, so it's kind of don't ask, don't tell kind of thing.
And they're also in a way if they don't know what type of kid you are. If they get you in trouble, are you the kind of kid that's gonna get them in trouble?
Right, and that actually was pretty common. Doormen just knew not to mess with anybody. Everybody there was very high maintenance. Everybody there was pretty terrible, I would say.
Right.
A bunch of the multiple people in the building, the times I lived there, were arrested for all sorts of white collar nonsense.
Right.
One of the more famous ones was, I think, Anne Hathaway's husband lived there.
Oh.
And he, or boyfriend, and he got arrested for all sorts of shit at the time.
Wow.
Anyway, so I lived there, and then you get in the elevator, and you're going to press the button, but you're not allowed to press the buttons. There's another guy there to press the buttons for you.
Right.
And then you get in the apartment, and it's a totally weird. I lived on the 49th floor.
Wow.
And so we got to overlook all of Manhattan, and that was cool. That part of it was cool, but you learn about a side of Manhattan being in that kind of, not even New York City, it's specifically Manhattan. They don't, a lot of these people don't leave Manhattan. That's to them, Manhattan is New York and New York is Manhattan, and it's nothing else.
Right. And the outer boroughs are just outer
Yeah,
boroughs.
They're why are we even talking about that?
Right.
And you start to realize there's this kind of culture up there where, the people that are in that kind of circle are no smarter than any of us, right? They're just a little more, they're more conniving and they're more whatever, and they'll do whatever it takes. They're more ruthless and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you could easily come to a lot of the same conclusions that they're all coming to. It's just a question of whether you would do it or not.
Right. It's maybe morals or ethics.
Yeah, it's
to
not
some
intelligence,
degree,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, it's actually a lack of intelligence that causes them to kind of stumble through. I would say the thing that's most common is persistence, though. All of them are so fucking persistent in getting what they want and all that type of stuff. But you also realize other things, the restaurant Tao, right? You go to Tao and you're sitting there and you're like, hey, this is a nice restaurant, this is good food. It's not really what it is. Tao and Nobu are places where it's full of very high-end prostitutes and businessmen.
Okay.
And when you look at it and you see it in that way, you realize it's not really a restaurant. It's more like, I don't even know. It's,
like a place to parade?
I guess, something like that. And you realize, when you look around, you see every table is like a very old man and a very young woman, very old man, very young woman. It's not the same thing as a restaurant to me. It's like something else is happening there.
Right.
And are either of those inside Trump Tower? Are there restaurants inside?
Yeah, well, I don't know what he was talking about, but Trump said that there were really good taco bowls in his building, but I don't remember those being there. There was a Tower Records, and there was like an ice cream shop, and there was like a bunch of, basically like nothing to write home about type of places.
Right.
I think there was one like Trump steak house or something, or there was like a steak place for business lunches and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so did you ever encounter the man himself?
Yeah, I did, and it was not. So he was friends with my stepdad, and my stepdad was more friends with his brother. His brother was like a pretty cool guy, with my stepdad at least. And I don't know of him from my perspective. He was a cool guy. I just know that him and my stepdad had a pretty good relationship, and then also my stepdad and Trump had a pretty good relationship.
Okay.
But I don't know what it really means to say like people in that world have good relationships, because like they're not the same as friendships. They're not like, they're more of like, this person's in my Rolodex and they'll be willing to do favors for me because they know that the favors I can provide are of value. Like, it's just like a transactional kind of.
It's not like we're gonna get together and like watch a movie and have a nice conversation about like what's going on in our personal lives, and more like, I'll call you when I need something.
Yeah, basically. But I do think that Trump's brother and my stepdad were actually legitimate friends.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen is I would see him get in the elevator, and I was like a real grubby, degenerate kid.
You were coming back from the statues.
I would come back from the statues. I reeked. Like, I wasn't really showering that. Like, it was like a little punk kind of like.
Right.
Were you like rebelling against?
No,
that? Like, you
I
were
just
living
didn't.
there, or
I
you
just didn't
that's
care
just what
about
was
it.
happening?
Like, it was so cool because like I didn't even listen to music when I was like younger. Like, it was just a weird thing. I was a weird subculture of just like myself, of like I didn't listen to music. But because I didn't care about stuff, I guess that put me more into like a punk vibe circle. But I also didn't dress like, I wore sweatpants and like t-shirts all the time. I just wasn't like, I literally looked like pretty homeless.
But like maybe the kids that were like trying to be punk saw you and were like, oh, he's like our king or something.
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
I think I was more like just kind of funny to the people, everyone.
Okay.
And so I would come home, and I would be in the elevator with Trump, and I used to be so self-conscious about that because like he's a pretty tall dude and he owns the building, and I think at a certain point I must have been really gross one day. He like did not like the vibe I was giving off, or probably smelled terribly.
Oh.
And from that point forward, every time he saw me, he would go like this, get in the elevator, and make it close so he didn't have to ride it with me.
Oh my God!
And that happened like multiple times.
Like he remembered you?
He remembered me.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was. I never talked to him, never said anything. My mom talked to him a few times because he shot a commercial in our house for Trump University.
Okay.
In your house?
In our house.
Like in your apartment?
Yeah, because our house had like good views and shit. It was nice, and so the finish inside of our house, and I don't know if this. So I've been in a few of the apartments in the building, and basically the big difference between them is, in terms of the finish inside, is you basically get this very large floor-to-ceiling windows, but there's like a divider more towards the bottom 75% that gives you these like little windows. Mm-hmm. And usually they're finished with like a brushed black aluminum or something.
Okay, yeah.
But it's like a black trim, basically, black metal trim. And then other apartments have a gold finish.
Okay.
So very gaudy interior, like all gold, everything. So that building is seen as one of his only like majorly successful real estate investments, or maybe it's seen as his most successful. because it actually like never was at risk of being in foreclosure or like bankruptcy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like actually a, whatever. They did a good job with that thing. And you look at the cesspool that's in that building and all the drama in that building. I mean,
Yeah.
my stepdad used to live in the top floor. So the top floor is 2 units. It's Trump's apartment, which is I think a 3-story or 2-story duplex. Mm-hmm. And it's another unit.
Okay.
And so you get out of the elevator and it's these 2 units. And I don't know how the elevator opens up into them. I don't know if there's a foyer or there's like or you can see both apartments or they open up separately. I'm not quite sure. Mm-hmm. But he said when he moved in, so my stepdad used to live in the other one.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how he became friends with them. And he said when he moved in, the previous tenant was Michael Jackson.
Wow.
And he got in there and there are all these mannequins everywhere. And on the walls, there was no wallpaper, but there was just phone numbers written all over the walls.
Wow.
And like, you can just see it, right? You can see like Michael Jackson on the phone, just like, yeah, let me have your number, and not even caring that he's ruining this. Like that's a concept.
That
doesn't.
he's living in like the penthouse of this like super.
Just writing all over the walls.
Wow.
Strange.
So they didn't paint that over before?
No, I guess not. They just left.
That's interesting.
Because so a lot
I guess there's no like security deposit to get back.
Well, most of the units
like
are
that.
not owned by Trump. Most of the units are owned by somebody who then rents out the apartment.
I see.
Yeah.